Good afternoon, everyone. We're here in a chilly, actually, it's a heat wave here in Nebraska. So we're like at 20 degrees, you know.
Oh, wow.
One of my kids didn't even bother wearing a coat outside.
We're going to get almost close to 70 today in Houston. So it's back to
70,
shorts and
man.
t-shirts now.
I would just be a puddle there. I walk outside today and like the snow's not even melting. Like it's just piled up in these giant clumps outside. And um like I'm like, this doesn't feel too bad. I can roll down my windows, and drive around. It's amazing what you can get used to.
Yep.
Which brings us to stakeholder interviews. The great thing about stakeholder interviews is it is probably the most overlooked um engagement for MSPs, just because it doesn't seem that important to talk about, hey, I want to find this person who's not a decision maker, but knows a lot about my client.
Mhm.
And I want to ask them how things are going, because to you, everything's going along normal. But to them, they're struggling with working offline because they think that's normal. They think it's normal when they're at home to fight to get online, to
Yeah.
fight to get into the system. Just like I think it's normal to walk around in a light jacket in 20-degree weather. You've got to talk to your stakeholders to sense what they see as real and what the business sees as problems.
Yeah. And just kind of reiterate part of that. The key stakeholder interviews are, for the analogy wise, these are the gold standard examples of low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
This is just the amount of effort for you to do these is so small, and the rewards are so great that I really don't understand why we don't do these more. And you look at some account managers or people just, well, actually, where I've seen some of this and, where I learned a lot of the lessons here was not necessarily in account management, but it was in engineering. When you have very technical people and for whatever reason, they get stuck or they get, in a space where they're able to talk for a little period of time with someone really important in the business, and the takeaways from that were always just so fantastic. So it's just, there's not hardly any requirements for you to do it, but the value for what you get out of that effort is just fantastic. So we've got to be more intentional about them. They've happened in the past, but we don't make them a priority.
And if you check in our history, like on our events calendar, we talk about stakeholder reviews multiple times throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
I think last time I counted, we talk about stakeholder interviews more than we do QBRs or anything else, because they are
cool.
so relevant to being a good MSP, to having that value of how does my client know they're getting a good return on investment? How does my client see us as a valuable MSP? And the answer is stakeholder interviews. You have to relate what you're doing and what they're doing together. It can't just be a one-way, hey, I'm going to put a firewall in. Hey, I'm going to replace a PC. That's a one-way street. If you say, what's going on, and let the stakeholder can be somebody, maybe they're that one person, they were employee number 3.
Mm-hmm.
They never wanted to get into leadership. They just love doing their job. They're an admin assistant or something like that, but they know the ins and outs of everything. Like, you know what? Right now we're struggling with this. And like, oh, well, let me prioritize this project, which will make that easier for you. And when you get done at the end of the year, you're like, well, why do we have this MSP on? Like, remember when you used to fight to do online testing? Yeah, we solved that problem in April for you. Remember when time cards were all done by hand and we helped you install that electronic time card system? That's return on investment.
Mm-hmm.
Versus just saying, hey, we closed this many tickets, we did this many PCs. That's not return on investment. That's just you maintaining the oil in the car.
Yeah, that's the electricity utilization report.
So it's the perceived value, and the key stakeholders at an organization are what change that perception. You have to listen to them, so that perception of you doing something, you can work your butt off, but if you don't do that right thing, no one will understand. Like, I remember working in the corporate world and people were just absolutely floored when they got a new keyboard and a monitor. They thought it was the greatest day. I could have swapped out PCs every day and no one would really notice.
Yeah.
And so that perceived value, when I fixed that, the Office toolbar, remember when the ribbon first came out in Microsoft
Oh yeah.
Office?
It was
Everybody hated it. When I allowed them to have their menu back, like they thought that was the greatest time. And so these perceived values come from talking to the key stakeholders and asking them what they care about and how you can help them.
Yep. I want to dive in a little deeper on who the key stakeholders are. And here's the part about it. You are not going to know who they are. All right. So we just get that out of the way right up front. It's not based on their job title. It's not even how long they've been with the company, although that does tend to, pop up, I think, more often than not. But it's what they do for that organization internally. And one of the ones that always popped in mind for me is an engineer that I worked with. He was a geoscientist. So a geophysicist. All right. And he was an interesting person. Okay. And you kind of either loved or hated him, but either way, it was really clear that he probably wasn't going to be a leader, as far as running a team or, working his way up the management ladder. But when it came to analyzing and the opinions of whether the company should commit money or, what direction they should do in, some of their activities, everybody listened to this guy. All right. Yeah. Whether you liked him or not, you listened to him because he was super smart. He knew what he was doing and he brought a lot to the table. So that, and you don't know who those people are. All right. So there are many times in the background, you may come across them from time to time. But that's generally the type of person that you're looking for who contributes a lot to the company, but they're not visible. So how do we get to those people?
Yeah.
You just ask. All right. All you got to do is ask. I try to go as far up the ladder as I can. So it's great when you can ask the CEO, for candidates, but even moving down. So like this guy I was talking about, I didn't need to go to the CEO to identify this person. I could have gone to anybody in the organization and they would have said, oh, you want to talk to that guy. So just get referrals from your clients, set those up on the calendar, and those become your key stakeholders that are going to generate just an amazing amount of information for you that's really going to impact their business.
And I like to do key stakeholder interviews as SWOT exercises. That's Adam Walter's way of doing things. And that's where I say, hey, give me your 5 people who have the best grip on your organization. And my usual tech point of contact or whoever I've been saddled with will say, oh, let me get together Alice, George, Bob, blah, blah, blah. And let's set a meeting together. This is also a great way to get into the C-suite. If you've been relegated into like the back corners of your client's office, you get there and you say, all right, let's talk about what's good for the business. What's the strengths of the businesses? What are the weaknesses of the business? I need to know what opportunities you guys are chasing so that I can line up technology that's going to help you achieve these goals. And I did this with schools a lot. And that's where I got a lot of great feedback. And I had these 60 projects that needed to be done for this client. And because of those stakeholder interviews, I was able to like move things around and like, you know what they really care about? They really care a lot about internet activity. They really care a lot about having stable internet. And so I put together a stable internet project for them. Or when I was at the corporate world, we would talk to the end users like, you know what they really care about? They really hate filling out timesheets by hand, or they really hate tracking mileage. And so we found tools to help them with that. And now of the 60 projects I need to pitch them, I now am pitching the ones that are going to resonate the most with the organizational behavior. So
right. And you know how to identify and explain the value of those projects to your customers now, because you get to use their words. That's the best part about it. You don't have to come up with stuff. You just got to listen to your clients and use their words to say, This is the problem you told me about, and I can fix it.
Remember all those cheesy active listening classes that your significant other took you to, or you took in college, or whenever it was? That's where this comes in. So I hear you want to be able to boot your computer faster so you can blah blah. Okay, let's get an SSD for you. So revenue generation gets focused around solving client problems, not the problems you think they have, the problems they think they have. And there's a big difference between those. I wanted to say cognitive dissonance there, but I'm going to avoid that. There's a big difference between the problems you think your client has and the problems they think they have. And this goes for any relationship that you're in. What is the problem that the person across the table from you cares the most about? They may have a screwed up priority schedule. That's okay. They're the ones with the checkbook. They may not have the right priorities, but they're their priorities. It's their business at the end of the day. And so what's going to help you retain this client is understanding their priorities, even if you disagree. Understanding how they're generating revenue so that you can help them. And if it's their failure, it's their failure. You can advise them, say, hey, I recommend you do this as well. But at the end of the day, they're the chief. They're the person who calls the play. And that's how you're going to get that client retention, because you listen to them and you're solving the problems they want solved. Then you're generating more revenue because you're selling projects and services rather than spending all day trying to pitch things that the client does not really care about and trying to convince them to buy a Ferrari when they just want a Volkswagen.
Yeah. Well, Adam talked about using the SWOT, and he's comfortable with that, and that works really well for him. So that's great. And you just need to find what works for you. In our platform, we've got a template of suggested questions, but that's by no means the gold standard. I took an interesting route with one of my key stakeholder interviews a while back. I had already used my 2Q question with the CEO. Number one source of revenue, number one risk for that revenue. And then we did it again to kind of get, the number one and then the number two. And so I had a great little picture. We talked more about some of the details. It was all really good. Well, a couple of months later, I was doing the key stakeholder interview, and I did the 2Q with him again. And I was able to map it out again, number one, number two, and some assorted little details that went around with that. And here's the cool part about it. It was different than what the CEO had said. So here we've got the owner of this organization and the person that he has identified as his right-hand man, the number two guy that's, doing a lot for them. And they don't have the same view on revenue and risk to that revenue. And I thought that was fantastic. Now, I don't have to analyze that. I don't have to come back and, point out, what's right or wrong. I had a great opportunity to sit down with the CEO later and say, hey, here's what you told me, and here's what your number two man told me. They're a little different. Let's talk about it. And to see that, and again, so one, I got the benefits out of getting that information from both the CEO and the key stakeholder. I got information that I could run with, things that are important to them. But two, in being able to marry up the difference in those and just being a part of the conversation, I got to be at a different spot with the CEO than you wouldn't normally be. Because now we're talking about why their business differences, exist within their organization. And I had no opinion and really no weight or bearing on that, but I was part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. That's one of these exercises that gets you that seat at the table.
Yeah, and I used to get that question a lot, and I feel like I'm getting it less because people are giving up on getting a seat at the table. No. You deserve a seat at the table if you're willing to listen to your client and what they're trying to do. You do not deserve a seat at the table if you're going to walk in there and try to sell technology. Uh-huh. You're just a mid-level manager at best.
Yeah.
And that is where a lot of MSPs fail, and it's listening to those key stakeholders. Treat them like team leads. Treat them like the valuable assets they are. and take their advice to heart. When the client says, I want this, and you go, well, you really need to harden your infrastructure first. Like, solve this problem first, get on their good side. And then when they say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing that, like, well, now that you're doing this, you probably need to harden this stuff. Otherwise, this is going to fail. Now they're going to listen to you because you listened to
Yes.
them first.
Yes.
It's not a shouting match. It is a cooperation that's going to allow you to get where you need to go. If you don't cooperate, you're going to end up in this loveless relationship where you're just there as a necessity.
Yeah.
But if you get there and you listen, and if you show them that you're listening, then they're going to start listening to you back. And that's why key stakeholder interviews are really important. Sometimes a leader of an organization does not know what's going on at the low level. It's, you know, like Skip and I and the sales team talk every week, multiple times a week, because I'm like, I don't know what's going on over there. You know, there's all these hundreds of things that the sales team's doing. And I'm not paying attention, but when the decision needs to be made, they're like, hey, what are we trying to accomplish here? Hey, we're trying to do this. Okay, let's line that up. And they try to solve a problem for me. Then when they ask me, like, hey, can we have this new tool that's going to help us do this more? I'm like, yeah, you've been kicking ass. Let's go ahead and do that. Or Skip, you know, might say, hey, the software needs this fix or needs this feature, you know, and we're all working together. I mean, it's not just the leadership panel's decisions. It's the advice of our key stakeholders in each role that's steering this ship along. And you, as your piece, as an MSP, the technology piece, need to talk to the organization and say, where do you want this ship to go? Our old saying at Virtual C, the parent company of Humanize IT, was, we are navigators.
Yep.
We got this ship, we're on it. We don't know everything the ship is doing. We try to learn as much as we can, but we're steering it one way or another. And there's a lot of components coming together. And it may not make sense to take a left here, but there's an iceberg up there we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
You know, we may not be wanting to go scrub the deck, but it needs to be cleaned because there's crap all over it. You know, there are things that we need to learn about our clients so that we can sell them projects that matter. And that is how you're going to increase perceived value. That's how you're going to show them return on investment. And that's how you're going to retain these clients, because they know that you get it. And you're not just there to sell cars, sell technology. You're there to make them profitable. And they need you because you become one of the key stakeholders.
Yeah, that's true. And that is really the goal we want to get to. I think too many times we lose sight of that goal. We get in this mode of, hey, I need to fix this. I need to install that. I need to close this ticket. That's very operational stuff. Yes, we are going to do those things, but you want to be that advisor. That's going to be the long-term relationship. That's going to be good for your business. It's going to be much higher margin, which is, you know, really good for your pocketbook. And the converse to that is you're constantly going to be battling your competitors. You'll constantly be, you know, getting rid of clients and, you know, picking up new clients. And it's going to be a constant cost cutting exercise on your part, which is really pretty miserable for your pocketbook. So, you know, we really want to keep eyes on our goal here, and that is to be the consultative partner. You're still doing all the things you're doing today, but you're doing it with a better relationship and with higher margin.
Yep. And that's the beauty of this, is like, we're going to talk about this throughout the year. So today, to get us to key stakeholder interview, you talk to your point of contact at your big clients to say, hey, I need to do a discovery session, a business discovery session. Can you give me 2 or 3 of your key stakeholders? I'll buy them lunch and we're going to sit down. They need to teach me about their organization, what's going on. Get that on a schedule now. It's February coming up. No one has anything going on in February, people. I promise you. No one has anything going. Everybody's wanting to like line up their years right now. And that's something you can do. You can call your client. You can email and say, hey, I'd love to do a business discovery session so we can line tech and business together. We're trying a new initiative. And that is what you do here. And we're going to remind you again throughout the year as part of our events calendar to get these stakeholder interviews going, because they're the ones that are going to help you prioritize your opportunities so you know which one the client's going to buy in on.
Right. Well, and on that, so we go to do things like this. And we're like, all right, yeah, if you're listening to this and you're thinking this is a good idea, I need to probably do some of these. Your next step is to book the meeting. Okay.
Book the meeting.
There's no prep work. You don't need to do anything else. You don't have to build a report. You don't have to go and learn anything. Book the meeting right now. And then when you sit down, just to set expectations, to kind of hopefully take the burden off your shoulders, that meeting, percentage wise, you're going to talk probably less than 10%. All right. If you're talking more than that, you're not doing the meeting right. All right. You need to, provide some ground rules, or, hey, this is why I'm here. I want to really help you guys understand, or I want to understand your business more so I can really help you guys out better. All right. Some form of that. And then whatever methodology you use, the SWOT, the 2Q, our format that we've got in the report, whatever. There's the BANT for projects. If they're looking at things, do we have budget and accountability and timing and the need? There's a variety of tools that you may be familiar with. Use any of them and just start with open-ended conversations. Let your client fill in all the details. Then you get up and go back to the office and start matching those up with all the technology that you can provide to them.
Yeah.
That's really all it takes. Do it now.
Stakeholder interviews, people. Get a hold of them. Make them part of your business practice, part of your playbook. And, I'm just kind of playing around here on the back end, like looking at our different streaming options. My favorite streaming option, just so everybody knows, is YouTube. If you like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube, you'll get an email reminder of when we go live. We go live often. And so you'll get an email saying, hey, Humanize IT is live right now. Go check it out. The comment section is better. The streaming option is better. And it's less lag. We don't get very much feedback. So on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn, I see Mike Giovanni's out there. Big shout out to him. Commented on us. But we don't see that unless I specifically go out there and click and see, is anybody commenting on LinkedIn? But YouTube and Facebook, we can banter back and forth with you. So please feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and our Facebook feed. And it's a much better experience there. But YouTube is my favorite because I get the email reminder. I need email reminders. Otherwise, I forget everything. But yeah, this is great. We're in January here. We're coming up to the end of January already. Next week will be January 25th. We're going to hit towards the end of the month, and then we're into February already. Yep. So we're getting close to, done with the year already. January. Man, we're like 8% done.
Yep.
So
it's going to tick off quick.
It's going to go quick. Get the stakeholder interviews going. Get your QPRs scheduled. Move, people. Yep. This is a good year. This is a growth year. And in order for you to take part of it, you have to be active. You have to be talking to your clients.
There you go.
Well, we'll see you all next week and our podcast on Monday. So talk to you later.
Right. Thanks, everyone.